Everybody ready? Good evening. It's my pleasure to convene the Town Council meeting for 6 p.m. for today, January 10th, 2023. Those we haven't seen already want to wish you a Happy New Year. Before we get to the agenda items, we'd like to recognize the members of our Mount Pleasant Youth Council who are with us. Would y'all just stand up and let us give you a round of applause, please? Thank you all very much. I think if you saw the news, you all know that, and as you see on the screen, a significant leader and a significant influence in our committee went to heaven this week. Thomasina Stokes Marshall, her information is before you. Her funeral will be, her services will be Friday at Seacoast at 11 o'clock. I think the majority of people I know are planning on being there. We will observe a moment of silence in her memory after we stand up, to be followed by the invocation by Chaplain Rob Dewey, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Santos. So please rise for the moment of silence. Reverend Dewey, I will let you end the silence as you see fit.
Lord, we give you special thanks and praise for those folks that have gone before us that are looking down upon us, especially for the leaders that have come through this council office. And particularly, we now remember our friend, council leader Thomasina Stokes Marshall, for her witness, her life, and her blessing to this town and to so many of us gathered here. We ask your special blessing on this group as we come before you and seek your guidance, your blessing, as we move forward to make our town even better than it is. In your holy and blessed name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chaplain Dewey, and thank you, Mr. Santos. Item 3 on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Before we get to public hearings, awards, and presentations, back to Mrs. Stokes Marshall. She served for 17 years. We have a video picture collage playing to remember her and things she has done. And I'm sure there will be other things forthcoming as we have time to think and reflect on all of these things. But of course, the Senior Center is named in her honor, and she was a driving force behind that. So this is not the end of our tributes to Mrs. Stokes Marshall. We have been asked, for the sake of some people who need to go somewhere, and we checked with our legal counsel, we are able on awards and presentations to move things around because they do not involve an action of council. So we will move first to the presentation of the Cresco Award. So I would ask all those involved to please come forward.
Hello, my name is Kate Miller. I'm the staff liaison to the Historical Commission. This evening, it's my honor to read for you the proclamation naming the recipient of our 2022 Cresco Historical Stewardship Award. Whereas the Mount Pleasant Historical Commission is charged with promoting the preservation, understanding, and appreciation of the town's physical and cultural heritage. And whereas the Mount Pleasant Historical Commission has created the Cresco Historical Stewardship Award, recognizing an individual, organization, or group that has done exemplary work in preserving, studying, restoring, or promoting the history of Mount Pleasant. And whereas Miss Susanna Smith-Wiles is considered one of the preeminent historians of the East Cooper region. From a childhood fascination with history she has dedicated herself to documenting and sharing the history of the Low Country. Whereas Ms. Susanna Smith Miles' contribution to the town's historical and cultural heritage through research work, publications, artwork, and cartography exemplifies the purpose of the Mount Pleasant Cresco Historical Stewardship Award. Now, therefore, I, Will Haney, Mayor of the Town of Mount Pleasant, on behalf of the Mount Pleasant Historical Commission, am honored to present on this day, January 10th, 2023, the annual Cresco Historical Stewardship Award to Miss Susanna Smith Miles.
And if you're at the top of your proclamation, you get one from the side bar. No speak. How about that? All right. Thank you.
All right. Next is the public hearing to receive input on the amended municipal budget, which is a agenda item later in the meeting. This is the public hearing portion, after which I am required by regulations to hit the gavel. So, Marcy?
Good evening. This is a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2023 Mount Pleasant budget pursuant to section 6-1-80 of the South Carolina Code of Laws. The proposed budget amendment is in the amount of $12,872,042.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. If anyone is here to speak to the budget, as you just heard, for this public hearing, please come forward. Anyone? All right, there being no public comment, this public hearing is closed. All right. Pass this down. Item B is a public hearing that has to do with our low-impact development techniques.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. If you will take it, Mr. Mitchell.
This is a public hearing, just for the record, I'll read it verbatim. A public hearing to receive input on a proposal to amend chapters 155 and 156 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinance pertaining to the creation of a new environmental program to encourage low-impact development, LID techniques for multifamily, mixed-use, industrial, and commercial development. Proposed is to establish a point system to ensure meaningful LID techniques are incorporated into each design. More specifically, amendments are proposed for LDR 155.054, Green Space Preservation Protection Plan, to create a new subtitle of 155.054, Residential Green Space Preservation and Protection Plan and Environmental Guidelines for Land Development, and adding Section 5 to 156.201, Section J, buffer yards, and modifying 156.173, area and paving requirements, Section B.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item for the public hearing? Item B. Anyone? Going once? All right, there being no public comment on that, this public hearing is closed. Item C was presentation of the Cresco Award. We have just done that, so we have completed section 4. This moves us to section 5 of our agenda, approval of minutes from the December 13th meeting. Second. And the November 22nd financial statement. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve both, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Item 6 is public comment. Those of you who have signed up, when your name is called by the town administrator, please come forward. You'll have 2.5 minutes. Please give your name and address. Please wait for the administrator to call your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. First is Mike Tinky, followed by Scott Barheit.
I'd like to
Okay. Mr. Barheit, you are next, followed by Josh Dix.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Scott Barton. I'm Senior Vice President for Government Relations for the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce, with offices in North Charleston and 8800 here Avenue. The Metro Chamber respectfully requests that you defer the decision on ordinance number 23005 regarding residential density in commercial districts, which is up for first reading this evening. Our members are very concerned that reducing potential additional housing will do more harm than good. Additional housing is one of the most critical issues that our members tell us about every single day when we meet and gather and discuss the issues facing the business community. It is a corollary to the primary concern that we have about talent advancement and talent identification. We know that our ability to recruit and retain employees is critically linked to our ability to find adequate attainable housing for our employees. We respectfully suggest that you make sure that we understand the answers to some fundamental questions before proceeding. Questions like the complex relationship between the zoning regulations that you're considering this evening, new and existing housing marketplaces, and the capital markets. Questions like the financial and practical realities of residential development pro formas. Questions like the price, condition, and location of the housing stock in Mount Pleasant, including NOAA, naturally occurring affordable housing, as well as subsidized housing. And then finally, probably most importantly, is a clear understanding of the income status of the families of Mount Pleasant and the price of the homes that they can afford to either buy or rent. All of these complex questions are inherently involved in the decision that you're considering this evening. As I mentioned, this is one of the most important issues that the Chamber faces, that our members face. So important that we've already decided to hire a full-time executive fellow to create a regional housing coalition. And we pledge to do all that we can as the Chamber and the Regional Housing Coalition to support your work. Thank you very much for considering all of this.
Good evening. I'm Josh Dix. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors. Our office is located at 5006 Wetland Crossing Drive in North Charleston. I'm also here to speak about the potential downzoning that y'all are considering tonight. The reduction of 12 market rate units in the commercial districts would be a detriment not only to the housing cause that we're trying to advocate for, but also to the town in general. Those types of units are traditionally renters, but the advantages of having renters in these commercial districts is a benefit to the town. Renters traditionally do not have as many kids in the school system, so they're not overpopulating. The quality of life issues that we continue to talk about and want to advocate for, 6% properties are the only ones contributing to the school system. So not only are these potential rental units contributing to the school system financially, they're also contributing because they're not adding an element of overpopulation. Renters and 6% properties tend to have fewer vehicles, so there are less cars on the road as opposed to single family homes. We're encouraging sprawl by removing the density in these areas and transferring it to the outskirts of the boundaries. It spreads public safety thin. This has not been really vetted by the real estate community or the business community. We echo the Chamber's request that we seek a deferral. The town has really great staff that we work closely with. You just hired a great, talented economic development officer. Let us gather the business community. Let's talk about the future needs of Mount Pleasant, and let's create land use policy that is not only great for the region, but it's great for Mount Pleasant. We need smart growth solutions, and the removal of 12 units in the commercial district is not a smart growth policy. So we please request a deferral tonight. Thank you.
Next is Rebecca Williamson, followed by Jennifer McCool.
Hi, I'm Becky Williamson. I would like to thank everyone who did support the referendum. My husband and I have been playing tennis in Mount Pleasant since 1993 when we moved here. I've never not been able to find a court until the last few years. My Calta team of 20 years was not able to play out of one of the tennis courts this year because they needed an academy. So we were not able to have another Calta team because there's no room to put that team. We were a good Division I team, but now we either not playing or had to join another team. The tennis center at Mount Pleasant Rec has to turn away 3 to 5 teams a season, which is an average of 10 to 12 players per team, and that comes out to be about 40 players. There are a lot of Mount Pleasant residents that either don't get to play or they play on large teams with small amounts of playing time, and it's just not a good way to meet the tennis community. I'm the coordinator of the men's 18s and 40s 3-0 team, and I actually had to turn down the team just this week because there's no room. We have a granddaughter who just turned 2. She received her first tennis racket from Santa Claus and is already using it. Her dad plays too, and I want to be able to teach her myself if I can find room. We need tennis courts badly. People are moving here in droves and many play tennis. I coached tennis at Wando for 12 years, and now that I'm retired, I want to play as much as I can. So please vote for the second reading, the final reading, and let us get tennis courts. Thank you.
Ms. McCool?
Good evening. My name is Jen McCool, and I'm the LCTA Low Country Tennis Association overall coordinator for both 18 and over and 40 and over men's spring and fall leagues, as well as a member of the LCTA board. As a volunteer coordinator, one of my tasks is scheduling the men's spring and fall leagues. And I can tell you, our main facilities are close to capacity. I receive emails regularly from new players or players new to the area looking for teams. And as Becky said, it is not uncommon for teams to have 16 to 18 players when they only need 7 or 8 each week, which limits the playing time. This spring, I had to turn down 4 teams with an average of 14 players per team. That's 56 players that either need to find another team or not play at all. The LCTA is the largest CTA in the state, with our numbers surpassing both the second and third combined. We are also the 4th largest in the country, and a large portion of our players reside in Mount Pleasant and play at Mount Pleasant Rec. In 2019, the LCTA board changed its mission from growing low tennis in the low country to enhancing the player experience due to the fact that there was nowhere left to grow. However, our 2022 player count exceeded our pre-COVID numbers, and we are still growing. This spring, there are 389 teams playing in the Low Country League tennis. 184 are 18 plus, 117 are 40 plus, 74 are 55 plus players, and 14 are 70 plus players. MPR is the only public facility in Mount Pleasant where league tennis can be played. And of the 389 teams registered in the Low Country for the spring season, 76 of those play out of Mount Pleasant Rec, which is about 20% of the players. Other facilities with large numbers include Hamlin, Sneak Farm, Creekside, Ion, Park West. They're all getting overloaded. Tennis is such a great social, fun, and competitive sport that I only hope that we can find more courts in the Mount Pleasant area so that others can enjoy the sport as much as I do. Thank you very much.
Next is Dan Doyle, followed by Michael Harl.
Good evening, Mayor Haney, members of council. Dan Doyle with the Beach Company, 320 Broad Street in Charleston. I'm here to speak tonight on planning item, new business item number 5. There have been a couple previous comments already. This evening I'll be brief, but I do want to make a couple of critical points. I too request that you pause on any further action on approving this item. I think it's very important to get feedback from property owners in the community. We own a number of properties that are zoned area-wide business, one of which is right across the street, right outside the window here. It's a great example of what we're talking about here tonight. And well, I think it's well-intentioned in terms of understanding where this growth can occur, particularly with residential, whether that's single-family or multifamily. The reduction in units and the incentive to say we're going to go ahead and add 4 additional units if you do affordable or attainable is simply not realistic. The math does not work. And I'm here offering a resource to you to provide whatever feedback you need to show you and to help you understand just how density and affordability and private sector development works. So I offer that to you. The other thing that I would suggest is if the town really wants to get serious about attainable housing or affordable housing, take a look at what's happening right now in Greenville County and in Greenville City. They recently adopted a new affordable.
Will it be a positive or adverse effect? More layers of government oversight and bureaucracy are hardly good incentives for a thriving economy between the town and the private sector. The focus of the town should and must be to improve the quality, cost, and effectiveness of the services and the openness to enhance and encourage private sector investment in our town. How did this concept of a citizens commission even come to be? As previously stated, there are town, county, state, and federal regulatory governmental bodies in place to oversee, review, approve, and inspect those projects during planning phases and the construction phases. Why would the town entertain this commission? For what valid reason? In my humble opinion, this citizens commission is not in the overall interest of the town. To have a group of people wandering around the town with public and possibly private property.
Sir, it's time, sir.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Next is David Quick, followed by Nancy Shipman.
Hello, my name is David Quick. I live at 1502 Village Square in Mount Pleasant. I'll try to make this quick. Happy New Year first and foremost. It's great to live in Mount Pleasant. Lived here since 1988 and I love it. Anybody who's lived here this long has seen a lot of changes in this town. Some good, some not so good. And I'd like to address the not so good part. You know, I've been astounded at the number of trees that have been lost in this town, witnessed a lot of unnecessary cutting and a lot of beautiful places that have been paved over, built on that, you know, hopefully we can get a handle on developing a little bit better. So I am in total support of a green commission, a resiliency commission. I've spoken to several of you in different capacities. I know Eric has heard from me, and John and I have had a conversation about getting citizens involved in making our town a greener, cleaner place, and I think this is an opportunity for that as well. And I think it's a reasonable thing. It's not unprecedented. The city of Charleston has had a resiliency and sustainability committee for years. They put a lot of great things into practice. You know, efficient uses of our resources. I actually would like to see it extend to looking at making our town more efficient, from phasing in some electric vehicles. Don't know if that's on the table for this commission or not, but I think one of the previous candidates for council, Gary Smith, had pointed out that we spend $1 million a year on diesel and gas for town vehicles. I think we could save some money by phasing in some electric vehicles. But I think this is just a good thing to do. It probably should have been done about 20 or 30 years ago. I know that I was personally disappointed when the green space referendum didn't pass in 97 and 99, which would have provided money to buy a lot of land that has since been built over. I think we're all aware that we're facing a crisis on the planet, and that we all need to have local and global solutions to making sure that biodiversity is saved. And a lot of us live in this town for its creeks, its water, its sea turtles, its trees, you name it, quality of life. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Haney. I'm Nancy Shipman, 1174 Freelock Drive here in Mount Pleasant. I moved here in 1980 as a 5-year-old to this community that I was raised on along with my sister, and then I later raised my 5 children here. This community is special to me. Not only is it special to me, it birthed a nonprofit out of the loss of my son from the opioid epidemic in 2016. That brings us to why I'm here. Our state was awarded $363 million over 18 years, allocated per percentage for different counties and towns. This town, the town of Mount Pleasant, has been unprecedented in the state of leading that charge through collaborative partnerships, through first responders, through medical providers, through other community civic organizations. This is not tax dollar money. This is money that was from the loss and impairment of people due to opioids. My son is one of those. I'm encouraging you to know that our goal of Wake Up Carolina as the founder and executive director is to provide awareness, education with hope and recovery for young adults, individuals, and families through community collaborative partnerships like we have with the town of Mount Pleasant and first responders, as well as resources and support services. I left to come to this meeting from a mother's group. We are the only one in the state that provides this mother's group for mothers who have lost a child to a substance, a child that is in recovery, or a child that they no longer have access to. I am sharing this with you because we birthed something special in this town, and you have the opportunity to not only provide that awareness and education and continue to be the forerunners alongside of us, but I am asking you, begging you, for all of us that do not have our children and our people that are here because of the opioid epidemic, and for those that are forever impaired, to be diligent on how you're spending this money. I am unsure if there's a committee or how it works. I'm familiar with some of the other counties and towns, but I'm unfamiliar with Mount Pleasant's and the Star Home. We are on Coleman Boulevard in a tiny space. We served over 500,000 people in the past 2 years during an epidemic and during COVID when we had to cancel all our fundraisers. And to let you know, we serve 64,000 people through our 11 programs and services that walk through our door. Tonight, our mother's meeting, 2 hours just for our meeting. We're asking for your support. Thank you.
Next is Kevin Cunane, followed by Blair Martin.
Kevin Cunane, I'd like to thank the council members, those of you with the title council member. Thank you. We've seen somebody trying to halt the WTC Memorial here in town. And I've asked nicely for anyone to please provide me with letters or communications as to why that happened. I got nothing back. Makes me wonder. The memorial was started by a group of citizens and managed to get a piece of the World Trade Center. And Chief Ritchie, Chief Councilman Seneca has been very helpful in trying to get that place here in town. We don't know who would have tried to slow that down, but we have a pretty good idea. Remaining time, I'd like to just discuss this push to increase the density, basically to maintain and increase density in commercial areas. I'll go back to something I was a broken record on when I was on council, the fire protection for density in this town. We have an engine company right off Coleman Boulevard with 3 firefighters. Anyone here ever fight a high-rise fire? Anyone? Oh, I might be the only one, back way back. 3 firefighters not doing it. 9 firefighters not doing it. The regulations require like 35 or 45 for a high-rise fire. And the reason for the high-rise fire is not more staff fire department. That's not an insult on the people doing the job. It's that we do not have the adequate fire protection for those type of buildings. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Blair Martin, 7341 Allendale Landing Road. For almost 26 years, I had the pleasure and privilege of protecting our community as a police officer here for the town of Mount Pleasant. In that time, I got a very good view of the threats to public safety in this town. And I can assure you, without a doubt, my professional opinion is the number one threat facing our community is drugs. At the end of December, the numbers for Charleston County for fatal overdoses for the year of 2022 are 225, several dozen others still pending toxicology. For the town of Mount Pleasant, 11 citizens confirmed dead from drug overdoses, 3 other problems, 14. This is not an over-the-bridge problem. The number of overdoses that weren't fatal and the number of people in our community struggling with addiction is exponentially higher. If you don't know somebody that's personally affected by this, you will. The town has been very gracious and very helpful in supporting those who are fighting addiction in our community. Monthly Narcan trainings, supporting the opioid, the overdose memorial every year. It's been wonderful. I'm asking for your help one more time. As Nancy Shipman said earlier, the state legislature has earmarked over $300 million to go specifically for prevention and treatment of opioid and other drug disorders. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the privilege when I was a police officer of working with Wake Up Carolina. Now that I'm a private citizen, I continue to have that privilege of seeing the good works that they do. I can assure you there's no other game in town. None. Wake Up Carolina is on the front lines helping our families. And I would ask, when y'all are having your considerations about what to do with Mount Pleasant's share of this money, you look very carefully at Wake Up Carolina. There is nobody else that is providing these services for treatment and prevention. Thank you.
Next is Linda Brady, followed by Ty Weatherby.
Linda Brady, 226 Middle Street in Mount Pleasant. As a resident of Mount Pleasant and board member of the Surf Soccer Club, I'm here to commend and thank the Recreation Department, Public Services, Steve and Jimmy, and Andy, and the staff, the town staff, the Recreation Committee, the Rec Commission, and Council. On all of your efforts to improve and support recreation, the arts, green space, and by moving forward with phases 3 and 4 of Carolina Park, and hopefully with the passing of the recreation referendum. As a nonprofit that has served the town of Mount Pleasant for over 40 years, we recognize the need to continue to assess our organization on how we can be more proactive and collaborative with the town of Mount Pleasant for the betterment of all. After discussions with Jennifer Maxwell, President of Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce, and Kathleen Cartland, Sports Commission of the Charleston Visitors Bureau, and we did this in September, the South Carolina Surf Organization made decisions to reschedule the Charleston Challenge Cup soccer tournament, which has traditionally conflicted with the Sealy and Valentine's Day weekend, an already busy time for the town of Mount Pleasant. In collaboration, we rescheduled this upcoming tournament to the second weekend in February, where hotel occupancy is significantly lower. I've also shared with you all Charleston's
Visitor Bureau's economic impact analysis based on our board tournaments last year and the fall season. We look forward to and appreciate the opportunity for continued collaboration with the Recreation Commission, Recreation Committee, the town's economic development team, and the business community to have a positive relationship and financial impact for the town of Mount Pleasant. Thank you again to the town of Mount Pleasant Recreation and Public Service Departments for our partnership to host local soccer games. We really do appreciate everything that you guys have done, and the kids really appreciate it, so thank you.
My name is Ty Weatherby. I live at 563 Creole Retreat, and I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I did see that you gave an award to Miss Susanna Smith Miles. My company I started is called Rebellion Roads, and I would have never heard of it had she not written an article about it in the Moultrie News describing a safe anchorage out in the Charleston Harbor where pirates used to blockade the city. I like it because of the element of the roads, and we're trying to work with y'all to make bikes on a better way to get around here. And so my point is I want to throw my hat behind also your development of that citizen group, and then I also like to bring to your attention the plan to change the Isle of Palms connector bike lane by removing one. And I would just note that Concepts 5 and Concepts 3 put 2 bike lanes heading from Mount Pleasant to Isle of Palms. And I think that's I don't speak for all cyclists when I say this myself, but I think that if we put flex barriers or jersey barriers, it's an acceptable compromise that we could take. That said, it's mostly in Mount Pleasant property, the connectors. So, I think we should have a stake in it as much as the Palm Republic. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you.
That's all I have, sir.
That was good. Anyone to speak who did not get the chance to sign up, please come forward, give your name and address. 2.5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm calling for the Tinson West Cottingham Drive. I'm here in support of the Commission for Conservation, Resiliency, and Green Space. I am on the city's Resilience and Sustainability Committee, and I've also helped with the County of Charleston's Resilience and Sustainability efforts. I think they've done fabulous work. I think Mount Pleasant could absolutely do a lot. There's a lot of chicken on the bone, so to speak, for a commission like that. And I just support that highly. And I am a senior, and I go to the senior center. And I am in my 50s, and I just want to let y'all know there aren't a lot of programs there for people in their 50s. If we work 9-5, there's not a whole lot of effort going into helping us, have classes or programs before or after our work time. So, and the only way I heard about it was through another citizen. So, I think more could be done to get more people in their 50s in there. So, anyway, thank you very much for all you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Shut up. My name is Al Bradshaw. I'm the USA Pickleball Ambassador of Charleston County, one of them. I'm also a certified instructor, and everybody knows me well. And I just appreciate the opportunity to speak here, and I want to say thank you for everything that y'all have done for pickleball. There's pickleball courts popping up all the time. I personally have introduced over 1,000 people to pickleball. Most of them have surpassed me now, especially since my knees are so bad. And y'all have recognized me for that, and I certainly appreciate it. We got a tournament coming up, April 22nd and 23rd. It's exploded, pickleball. I got a Team Reach site and a Facebook site.
and we've got between 1,900 and 2,000 members on that. And it's just, and every time I teach, I have more and more people. I teach every Friday from 1 to 2 at the senior center, and some people associated with old man sport, old person sport. But I have taught 5 and 6-year-old girls up to 92-year-old men, so it's all over the gamut. And I want to thank you for this referendum that passed, and I appreciate the courts that are going to be there off rifle range. 8 courts is proposed. That will give us a centralized location where we can get everybody to play. We can play by skill level and get lessons, have tournaments, whatever it is. And I'll just quote Mayor Haney. When I first met him years ago, his wife used to play pickleball. She introduced me to him, and he said, "Oh, we're going to make Mount Pleasant the pickleball capital." Well, 8 courts now is going to be a beginning. And I appreciate all you've done. Also, I want to mention that Charleston and North Charleston installed some dedicated pickleball courts, and there was some mistakes made in the design, and I would like this someone contact someone that plays pickleball to just look at it and make sure the plans are correct. The court size is good, but the space around it is inadequate for safe play. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
As you can read, I'm addicted to pickleball.
Thank you.
Good evening, Perry Rourke, 2004 Brickhill Parkway. I know there's a number of people that wanted to speak tonight in favor of the final reading, passing tonight of the recreation referendum. If you're here for that, if you just please stand tonight. Thank you. Once again, I just want to thank the members of council that put the referendum on the ballot for the residents to decide, and certainly appreciate it getting past the first reading, and we're all looking forward to seeing it passed tonight at the final reading. And thank you again for all your support.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'll be quick.
Name and address, please.
I apologize for not signing up, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jay Thor. I'm with Wake Up Carolina Board, and so I won't be redundant. I won't do as good a job as Blair and Nancy in terms of the passion around what we do as an organization, but I just wanted to implore the council in the town to consider Wake Up Carolina as an organization, because you have a very unique opportunity to leverage the dollars that you get to impact lives. And it's I apologize to get emotional about this, but it's there aren't a lot of places in the state where you can do that. This organization fills the void, and it really is a unique opportunity. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You just got to push some of those funds over there, because we're a collaborative organization that leverages the town, and we leverage the first responders. And it's just a great opportunity, and I just implore you to consider that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment before we quit? All right, there being none, that concludes item 6, public comment. Item 7 is consent agenda items. Move to approve all items. We have a motion to approve all items and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving consent agenda items A and B, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Final reading, ordinances viewed in consent agenda A and B.
This moves us to section 8, which is planning new business. Hello, Ms. Reed.
Hello.
Walk us through them, please.
Council. This is a request to annex a piece of property at 2310.
Move to approve. Second. We have a motion to approve and a second on item 1. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 23001.
Item 2, please.
Yes, sir. This is in.
Move to approve. Second. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 23002.
Number 3, please.
Move to approve.
Second. All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 23003.
Item 4.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 23004.
Item number 5, first reading. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. All right, we are in discussion. Did I see your hand go up? Mr.
No, sir.
Oh, I thought your hand was going up. Yes, sir, Mr. Iacofano.
I was very quick down there. I was going to make a motion to defer to get a little bit more conversation on this. I've heard the commission and the committee minutes. I think we're just arbitrarily throwing numbers out there. I'm not a land developer myself. I don't know how to redevelop land either. I do think that in the past, history shows that in this town there was kind of just signatures happening and we were just building like crazy. So I think the public sees that and says, no more, just zero. Well, I understand that, but there is property rights and there is the opportunity to redevelop correctly with proper planning. I think that this just puts a halt to affordable housing that we truly need. And I think it's not just a yes and it's not just a no. It's a collaboration of different things coming together. You've got to have public transportation involved in this. You have to have affordable housing involved in this. You have to understand the different infrastructure that's needed. Fire department was brought up earlier. So I think that we need to bring in a consultant or a body that helps us understand this a little bit more, because I'm listening to the meetings and I'm hearing, well, we'll do 2 and 10. Well, we'll do 4 and 8. Well, we'll do 8 and 4. Or we'll do 6 and 6. It's like, we're just coming up, like, where are these numbers coming from? There are paid professionals that can tell us, there are other towns that can tell us to look at how can we do this the right way and not just put a halt to it. So for that, I would have made a motion to defer, but very quick. So go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Sure. I too would have liked to seen it be deferred for some more discussion for both reasons. I think some of what Councilman Iacofano spoke of, the attainable housing is important. It's very important. I'd like to see our first responders be able to live in this town. There's no question about that. Kind of goes to our point, too, about our police, our fire department. It's great to have them living in the town, especially for emergencies, natural disasters, those type of things when you need to get people in fast. They live here. We can get them here quicker. So I'd love to see some more discussion about the attainable housing portion of it. But also, as a public safety practitioner for over 37 years, I also see the need to make sure that we have our proper police in place, fire in place, before we build these new units. And historically, and Mr. Moore, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're always asking for an impact study or an impact letter from the first responders, at least from the police department. I would do one and talk about the impact. And, it was one of these things where we file a letter, send it back, we didn't see any impact. Well, as this town's grown, I've seen an impact, quite frankly, that without the proper police officers to respond, or firefighters, or EMS, public services, put all of them in that category. We need to have these things in place before, not after. I'd like to see some more discussions. So that's where I am I would prefer to defer for a little more discussion before we got here to a vote. So, thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you look on your sheets, the planning committee recommended approval 3-1. I'm the one. I think that this is the second time in a year that we've tried to reduce the number. Before it was 16. We reduced it down to 10, or down to 12, I'm sorry. 12 is what it is today. I think there was some confusion earlier when there was a suggestion that we don't raise it. We're not looking at raising it.
we're looking at the potential to leave it where it is. If you go to Shellmore, that rating of 12 units per acre is Shellmore. Sure, go ahead. That's 12 units per acre. You've heard from the Trident Metro Chamber of Commerce. You've heard from the home builders. What's been proposed is not going to get us any more attainable housing because there's not sufficient numbers from a financial standpoint. If you read last week in the Post and Courier, talked about what's going on at Town Center. Two of the businesses that are there today are, one of them is in bankruptcy, the other one's contemplating it. We're going to need to look at ways to mix residential with commercial. You're reducing the number of people. If we use the 12 units per acre, we're using a number that does not get us more students in the schools. It's less than the single family. So I'm agreeable to send it back to committee to defer tonight. And I know that's not what's up for vote, but we didn't have sufficient information to make a decision on how to do this at committee, and I think we really need that. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Ms. Hart, is your microphone?
Thank you. I don't want to bore everybody with saying too much, but when we reduced the number from 16 to 12, that was in the overlay. This number 12 has been in our commercial areas. The comp plan, this is only talking about commercial. We still have these higher densities with multifamily. We can have townhouses, condos, that sort of thing. The comp plan, if I just read a little piece from it, it says, this comp plan focuses on concentrated redevelopment and redesign at a few selected locations called hubs or redevelopment centers. The remainder, which is what we're discussing now, of our commercial properties, of the commercial corridors, is recommended to remain at a much lower density. In those areas, there could be consideration of allowing limited life cycle housing opportunities in appropriate areas. So the comp plan calls for the areas that we're currently discussing to not be high density. It's the reason for having hubs. This example of Ion is a hub. What we're talking about is not allowing our commercial corridors to be converted to residential. We've lost some commercial properties in the past. They've been converted to residential, and that's been a mistake. We want to conserve what we have that is commercial for commercial. Now, another reference that Mr. Chapman made was to a particular property that is a PD. Now, being a PD, they can come to us and request a change in their PD and request residential. So this doesn't even remove that opportunity from any planned development. So all we're talking about is the fact that every AB property in this town could be built to 12 residential units per acre without having to come to anybody and ask anything. So this lowers it in those linear commercial areas, and it also puts in consideration for workforce or affordable housing. Currently, our number of 12 units is at market value. There is no consideration for requiring any affordable piece. So if we're going to allow density, why not get something in return and that be affordable units? So we've been working on this for many, many months, talking about it for years, and now at least 8 months, this has bounced back and forth between the commission and the committee, And we've had a public hearing with these numbers of keeping the baseline at 4 residential units per acre. And if you want to add affordable housing units, you can build up to 8 per acre. So there's been a lot of work on this, and this is only first reading. If we learn something over the next month, motion can be made to amend it at second reading. But so far, I feel comfortable with these numbers because we still have a lot of opportunity in the town for residential, and this is just conserving our commercial areas to be predominantly commercial. Hello, testing, I'm in.
Hello.
Oh, I guess the floor's mine. First of all.
Right now, this only applies to commercial districts, as the wording said, properties in a commercial district, and it is conditional. It's not a principal use, and let's go over what those conditions are. This is not up for debate. This is just what those conditions are.
So our principal use table in our zoning code identifies permitted uses, conditional uses, and uses allowed through a special exception. So if you look at the highlighted area, duplexes, multifamily dwellings, and single-family dwellings are a conditional use in our limited office professional, neighborhood commercial, AB, and AB2. And then if you go down to the conditional use, the use conditions, it lays out 3 conditions. It has to be on the second floor. So you have to have ground floor non-residential, whether that's retail, office, what have you. It has to have direct access to the street level. And then third, density shall not exceed 12 units an acre. Ms. Hyatt is correct. This 12 units an acre, this condition, these 3 conditions have been in place for probably at least 20 years. The 16 units an acre used to be even more than that. It slowly got reduced through the growth management plan and then through the removal of the urban corridor. So this is the highest density outside of a PD that we have anywhere, whether it's commercial or residential, actually. We've had, over the last 20 years, we've had one development develop under this that was outside, again, of the urban corridor overlay district, and that's the Shelmore Village. Everything else that you see was typically along the corridor and took advantage of those bonus densities and those older provisions. But just as a matter of information, we are working on our code update. There's going to be another meeting before the regular planning commission on the 18th. So we're working through these things, but we immediately after the comp plan was adopted, amended this section of our code, which dealt with density in our residential districts. So you can see in the waterfront gateway district, that is the highest at Patriots Point that allows density, and that is comparable to what is allowed as the conditional use. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, but that's where we're at, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would like to echo some of what Councilwoman Hyatt said. I feel that we've been talking about this. Oh, just powered off. We've been talking about this for a very long.
Okay.
Thank you. We've been talking about this for a very long time. It has gone back and forth, and the Planning Commission. So we recommended 4 and 8, half sort of 50-50 with the attainable housing. Planning Commission actually came back with 2 and 10, so only 2 market rate and 8 attainable units. You know, it's in our comp plan to have a certain percentage of any additional housing built in our community to be attainable. And I think that the statistics on who rents and there being fewer families and children does not hold true for the town of Mount Pleasant. We have the best public schools in the community. Families are desperate to be in Mount Pleasant to get their kids into our schools. Our schools are crowded. They're talking about rezonings. I mean, I have friends on the constituent school boards, which are tasked with rezonings, and it's a quagmire because schools are full and overcrowded, and they're trying to rezone schools and they're getting pushback because no one wants to get pushed out of their neighborhood school, but this is where we are. We're at the point of bringing trailers to Lucy Beckham High School as a brand new school. So something, and what is most lucrative right now is housing, and the rents are incredibly high, and I don't buy it. Like, we know that attainable housing can be done in our community because it's been done. We have an example of it, and it was a developer who was willing to not 10x his money, but maybe only 3x his money, in order to provide attainable housing with a 75-year restriction. I think was the restriction for those buildings. So I think it can be done. I'd be interested to hear from someone in the next month. You know, we have 30 days for people to come to us with any information about that. But I think, you know, I'm comfortable with a 50-50 split, whether that's 4 and 8, 5 and 10, or even 6 and 12. But I want to incentivize the creation of attainable housing with our restriction of 30 years in place, where it must be attainable for 30 years, not just 10, which it was in the past. And I think people can still make money off of doing that. They just have to make a choice that they're going to make less money than they would otherwise. And I agree with the thoughts from the community and from Councilman Ritchie about our first responders. And if we are being pushed as a town to try to accommodate, I mean, I've been told like 20,000 more people, right? They want to add 20,000 people to the footprint of Mount Pleasant, but we don't have anywhere for those people to go except up. And that is not why people move to Mount Pleasant. That is not why people live here. We live here because we like our neighborhoods. We like that our kids can bike around. We like the safety of our community. And piling people in is not going to reduce traffic. It's going to increase congestion. Every one of these units, if they're market price or there's 4 adults renting, you know, a 3-bedroom unit, that's multiple cars there. It's counterintuitive, some of these statistics that are coming forth on what the demographic of renters are. I think we need to move forward on this, because the longer you delay, the longer it is in this, you know, we need to move and get the rules in place so that there is knowledge and certainty in the development community of what the rules are in the town of Mount Pleasant. And we need to do what we can as a council. Yes, people have property rights, but we have rights as a council as well to control zoning. And that's our job. Our job is to control zoning in the community, to protect the community for the people who already live here. So I think we need to move forward with this. I'm happy to hear from the chamber, from other people, their thoughts on, is 4 and 8, is it 5 and 10, you know, is it 6 and 12? And I may be alone in being willing to stay at 12, but make it 6 and 12. But I'm comfortable moving forward with 4 and 8 tonight. And I think that we have a duty as a council, and we were put here by people who want us to preserve the community for the people that are here and the reason that they moved to Mount Pleasant. So.
Well said.
Anyone else? Were you raising your hand, or?
I was a while ago, and I just want to echo Councilwoman Hyatt and Ms. Whitley as well, Councilwoman Whitley, for their statements. And I think the way I'm looking at this is residential and commercial is a privilege. And I think if I don't understand why we are like compromising and feeling like we're feeling pressure to up those numbers, because residents don't want density. The first place the family goes to as soon as they sign their lease is probably their local school trying to register, and they're just so excited they're moving here to go to school. And like GM said, we're just not equipped for that kind of an explosion in population right now. And we have been talking about this for a long time. I feel also like all 9 of us are fluid in the number. I feel like it's a workable thing over the next 30 days to tweak. So I would support moving forward with a vote on this tonight.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Jim. That was an excellent speech there. I couldn't have said it even better, so I support you.
I'd like to speak before we vote, unless anyone else wants to speak. This
this topic of affordability, the main issue I have with this is we have got to have an affordability put into this. And it is, when I first ran for council in 2015, there was runaway development, as Councilman Iacofano mentioned. And to get densities down to 12 units an acre, as Councilman Santos could tell you, he was fighting that battle before any of us who were elected in 2015 were. 12 was a good number, and 12 was the answer. And 12 has been that number for quite a while, and we're only talking about, you know the conditions. It can't be first floor. It has to have commercial under it, and it has to have its own entrance. So we're not talking about raising densities. Gregory Ferry was mentioned. That was done with private money. It's 36 units on 2 acres. That's 18 units per acre. That's what worked to get us our first privately funded successful. It's phenomenally successful. And if we cut this down to 4 and 4, we're going to be asking somebody to do it with half the density that we all applauded at Gregory Ferry. So as a member of the One Region Committee that is addressing attainable housing, and in keeping in mind that we have an economic development plan where attainability is something we have got to reach, I think we need to unleash the private sector to do that with the proper controls. And right now we have a moratorium in place that won't always be in place, and we have a building permit allocation system that limits the number of multifamily per year that can be done. So there's not going to be a sudden glut on the market because there's not enough permits per year. And permit allocation went all the way up to the Supreme Court in the year 2020 and has stood legal scrutiny. So I'm okay deferring this. I would have loved to deferred it, but since I don't have that choice, I'm a no vote tonight. I think if it passes tonight, we will get to a different number. I would be great with 6 and 6, keeping it at 12. But I think the private sector is the only way Mount Pleasant is going to get any attainable housing. You talk to any employer. I went to lunch with the head of Roper Mount Pleasant the other day. The people who provide health care for us are driving from Georgetown and Andrews, South Carolina, and that's wrong. And they need to be able to live in our community. So I'm going to fight for affordability. That's where I stand. If no one else wants to speak, I think we'll need a roll call. The motion is to approve, and this is item number 5 with the stipulations that are put in there.
Mayor, if I could just say something.
Yes, sir.
I think I'm hearing a way we might be able to compromise. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because I'm hearing there are several people who've already mentioned it, that if we could leave the number at 12 and require 6 attainable housing numbers, I think we can do what has been kind of suggested. So I would like to move.
We can't. It's first reading. We can't amend.
You have to wait a second.
Okay.
Right. Sorry. All right. If you'll vote yes is to approve as proposed.
Mr. Iacofano.
No.
Mr. Iacofano votes no. Mr. Rambo.
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos.
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley.
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman.
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley.
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt.
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mayor Heaney.
No.
Mayor Heaney votes no.
By the vote of 6-3, the motion passes.
First reading ordinance number 23005.
So now we can work for the next 30 days and get to a number that we all agree to. Item number 6, please.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. This is our low impact development standards, some of which are required and some of which are consents. And it originated in the Flood Resilience Committee, was sent to the Planning Committee, and both have recommended approval. Is there any? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a thank you to Kevin and his team. The program's great. Thank you.
Right.
All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve item 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
First reading ordinance number 23006.
Section B, Old business, there are no planning old business items. Section 9, committee action items. Flood Resilience Committee, this was
Motion
recommended.
to defer to committee.
Second.
To what was the motion?
Motion to defer to planning committee. I apologize.
Let me ask, this was from committee, it does not require a second, so would that motion take precedence over the committee's vote to?
A motion to defer would take precedence, so that is on the table.
Okay,
Correct.
so we have a motion and we have a second.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that?
Mr. Santos.
Thank you.
Okay, so this passed unanimously at the committee. I'd like to ask what your concerns are and why you would be deferring.
Well, I want to state very clearly that I am 100% behind the environment and making a positive change to the environment. I think I'm the only councilman here that drives an electric vehicle, and I compost, and I'm looking at solar panels and all kinds of other things. So my issue that, hey, I've got an electric vehicle. What do you want to do? I did. But you know, I brought with me when I brought originally the commission for the Recreation Commission, I brought it to the committee. It was a full outline that stated how the length of time, the number of members, what each member was going to be. I brought everybody a copy if they need it, and its purpose, length, what it was, the members, everything that was supposed to go to it. And I haven't seen anything, but it wasn't at committee. It wasn't discussed.
That was going to be part of the motion.
But I thought the purpose of committee is to do the homework and then bring it to council fully complete. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's not complete. Listen, I am 100% down with an environmental cause and flood resiliency, 100%. But I think that when it comes here, the homework is done. That's why the votes go through so quickly. And I think that homework needs to go back, be fully completed, and then brought back. I mean, we have many departments that take care of this. We have a flood resilience committee. We have a tree canopy ordinance with a full arborist on staff. With engineering department monitoring stormwater and making constant corrections. We have the emergency manager concentrating and worried about resilience. We have a carbon neutral initiative. We just voted through the LID. I just want to see how all of that's going to come together, and also request from staff that all initiatives that we have going, that we determine what the shortcomings are in those initiatives, like the plastic bag ordinance. We have a plastic bag ordinance, and I go to stores and they've got plastic bags that are 20 times thicker than a plastic bag ordinance. So where are shortcomings? What is the purpose of this commission? How many members? Who's going to take care of what? Bring that back and let's rock and roll with it. I'm 100% down.
All right. Well, since I didn't get to make my motion, let me tell you what this would be. It would be to establish a Citizen Green Commission subject to the following. The commission shall be entitled Town of Mount Pleasant Green Commission. The purpose and mission of the commission shall be to address, discuss, and recommend to town council through the Flood Resilience Committee town matters related to flood resilience, conservation, and green space. Number 3, the commission shall consist of 9 members, because that fits up here very well. Of the town of Mount Pleasant, applications for the commission shall be reviewed by the Flood Resilience Committee. The town council shall review recommendations of the committee and shall select citizen commissioners for 2-year terms. The commission shall be in effect for 2 years following council approval of all commissioners. That is the exact blueprint of the Recreation Advisory Committee. That's what the committee would be proposing.
Well, I was just saying, I agree with Mr. Icofano and even Mr. Harley. Some of his questions that he had as well, I think need to be answered. So that's why I agreed to defer it, so that we can get some of the answers to some of the questions that were out there.
Yes, ma'am.
So I also am a great supporter of the environment and of green space. The questions that I have, I mean, as chair of planning, is I don't know where this came from. It sort of came out of nowhere. I'd never received an email about this. It just sort of appeared on the committee and is now before us to approve the Citizens Commission with and my question is we already have a planning commission along with the planning committee. We have so many environmental, focuses in our town already. We have a rec commission where green space, I think, is part of recreation. Do we maybe add one person to the recreation commission whose job is to focus on green space? I think it's very interesting to have this sort of come and say we're going to have 9 people all focused on green space, and yet we don't have a committee for tennis and a committee for lacrosse and a committee for, they each sort of got one person to represent themselves in our town. And now we're going to have an entire commission focused on that, and we already have a flood resilience committee. The thing that I'm worried about, and it was raised by the public comment as well, is what increased costs is this going to put on our town? Is there one? Does this committee have any authority whatsoever to impose or to propose things that are going to raise costs for our community to do the things that we want to do and need to do? I think, I'm just going to be very blunt, I think we passed a referendum, we still have to do the final thing, that is going to build on some green space. It's going to preserve a lot of green space, but it's going to build on some green space. And what I don't want to happen is for a green space committee that was put forth by council members who were opposed to the referendum comes and undermines the recreation referendum and the ability of the referendum to build the facilities that were promised to our community and that passed by a vote of the public. This green space committee was not on a referendum. People did not vote to have this green space committee. I think that is my one concern, and maybe that concern is unfounded, completely unfounded, but I wanted to put it out there. And I think it'd be better to place one green space person on the recreation committee to speak to that, rather than have 9 people and create more bureaucracy in our town, more town resources dedicated to monthly meetings for a 2-year period. We could have someone on planning, that be their focus. And are we going to find 9 people in our community who have the degrees, who are not just advocates, but who are engineers, who are scientists, who are water resource people, who are going to do this? I don't see I'm happy to, I would like this to come back to planning committee so we have a chance to kind of go through all of this and understand it. Maybe this is something that I would vote for eventually once I understand the parameters a little bit better. But what I don't want is for this to be the opposing committee to the Recreation Commission to build out the rifle range park for the referendum.
Ms. Whitley, let me respond to that, please. First of all, it's a little bit offensive that involving citizens in the specialties of conservation, flood mitigation, and natural resources could even be perceived to be negating a referendum or a commission that this council established with 12 members and was not voted on. The public did not vote in the referendum to establish that commission. We established that commission, and at their first meeting, they were told to go out and get the referendum passed. This has nothing to do with spending any money. And the Recreation Advisory Commission has one person whose job is ocean space, open space, trails, and bikeways. Everything else is people using built facilities. And we're getting ready to spend $66 million on that. There's nothing in that about conservation. There's nothing in that about dealing with natural resources. There's nothing in that that has to do with ways to get our citizens and all to buy in and use these low impact development incentives that we're trying to get out there. This is our committee that came out of a recommendation to all municipalities from the Dutch dialogues dealing with flooding for coastal communities. And, 2 reasons this is happening so quickly. One is the Flood Resilience Committee is only 2 years old. Is it 1 year old or 2 years old?
Less than 1 year.
Flood resilience. Flood resilience.
Just 1 year.
1 year old, was established to do these kind of things. And the other is we have a great blueprint from something we all supported, which was the Recreation Advisory Committee. And I don't know who's lobbing grenades at this to be a counter to that. It has no approval authority. It will not spend any money. But if y'all are out there looking for green space, or y'all are dealing with the State Conservation Bank or the County Greenbelt Bank, let me know, because I don't know a group of citizens devoted to that. And, you know, from my decade of work with the Low Country Land Trust, conservation is a specialty. Conservation is something that I mean, there's nothing in here, and there was nothing in the referendum about habitat, about runoff, about stormwater, about any of those things. So I think, you know, we need to put to rest that this is some competing body.
Mayor.
Yes.
And are we really equating a sport to green space and protecting our town and what we're going to look like in the future? I mean, there's just 9 of us, and I know some of us are a little bit more, vocal about our wanting to protect what we look like and how much green space, how much we are taking part of protecting wildlife and environment, and thinking about where is this water going to go. I know I feel like that's my my war cry, but where's the water going to go? There's just 9 of us. And maybe this was triggered by that referendum was again, I'll say it again, it was a beautifully built campaign. But us tree huggers are not that organized, and I think that those residents need a voice, and they don't have one group right now who is out there advocating to us for wildlife and nature and conserving. And the fact that I think it is being implied that there's some sort of other motive behind it. No, I think, could it be that we just need to give residents a voice who have a passion for that? I think 100%. And again, the implications are super offensive, and I'm not offensed often, but
Ms. Hyatt.
I'm in favor of establishing this commission, and I believe it belongs with the Flood Resilience Committee. We have commissions that support and work when it comes to our built environment, but we have nothing that no group of citizens that can come together and work to protect our natural environment. And I think it's really important that now's the time for us to make a move with our low impact development. There are a lot of things going on locally with people wanting to limit filling and building. I mean, DHEC always seems to approve filling in freshwater wetlands, and there are so many things that I think that we could benefit from a citizen committee that has a passion or a specialty in these areas. And we didn't get any pushback when we wanted to set up our recreation commission. Nobody asked much about what it was going to cost or what was going to happen. So I'm kind of surprised that we wouldn't want to establish a group of citizens to help us protect our natural environment. It's what makes this place worth living in.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chatham.
Thank you, Mayor. All you have to do is look at item number 6, and I serve on the Flood Resilience Committee. Look at item number 6 we gave unanimous first reading to. It talks about more specifically amendments are proposed for green space preservation and protection plan, and to create a new subtitle, Residential Green Space Preservation Protection Plan, Environmental Guidelines, Land Development. That's all about low impact development. And low impact development, when this council discussed it, there was division. Some of that division was maybe we shouldn't put anything in there about if you do low impact development, then you get a carrot to do it. Well, what this commission would do is have individuals from the various components that would be directly involved in low impact development, whether it was the engineers who designed the plans, whether it was the developers whose money is going to be spent, whether it's the environmentalists, as Ms. Corley talked about. All of those groups, and there are probably more, but those, DHEC is another one that Ms. Hyatt mentioned. All of those groups have something to say about low impact development and how it works. So I think that the fact that we gave that and the low impact development unanimous approval on first reading, and then to have a commission to help us oversee that and help us give us ideas. And I say give us. They're not going to have the final word. The Recreation Commission didn't have the final word. So it's simply being created to give us more information so that we can make better decisions.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Rambo.
First of all, I just want to thank the Flood Resilience Committee for their work, and Ms. Corley, I know you're extremely passionate about this, and I'm 100% in favor of supporting this commission. My holdup in this is it's really hard to come into a meeting and have been given absolutely no information ahead of time about the committee at all, other than approval to establish a citizen commission to address conservation, resiliency, and green space. There's no attachment to that on the document for the public to say how many members, how long's a term, what are the requirements to serve? Are there going to be certain requirements for certain seats, or is it totally at large? How long is a term? All of that stuff. And so for those reasons and those reasons only, I am in favor of deferring and bringing it back next month with all of those details put out to the public ahead of time.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to apologize to Mayor Haney and Ms. Corley. Thank you so much for alleviating my concerns. These were concerns that I had just on hearing this and concerns I heard from citizens. And so it's reassuring to hear that the purpose of this committee is not to undermine the referendum, and it will not impact the build at all on the referendum. At Rifle Range Park, I still would like to defer this for the similar reasons to have the public have more opportunity to understand what this is, to understand if there's going to be a certain seat for an environmental engineer, a certain seat for, civil engineer, a certain seat for a conservationist, and have that hammered out in more detail, and also maybe talk about other options about what could be done with this committee. So I apologize.
Yes, sir, Mr.
I don't, it really sounds to me like nobody's trying to shut this down. Let me echo real quick on the Recreation Commission because I brought it up. It took me 2 times to get it on committee, actually. It took phone calls and emails to get it on committee, and that is with it already being outlined, 100% outlined. If the public wants to have copies, they can have, on what was turned in before, as it went to committee. This is going to committee. It was 100% outlined with 12 members and the definition: arts, health, rectangular fields, tennis, track, swim, basketball, baseball, green space. Those were the 9 members. That went to committee first. The mission is a couple sentences. The purpose, education, the bond referendum, other sources of funding, an entire paragraph of that mission, the length of 2 years, council members, how they were going to be selected, council members to each select 1 member, other 3 to be appointed through all council, commission to last for a period of 2 years. All of this was turned into committee to discuss. The committee then took it, changed it a little bit with recreation director input, I believe. Then it went through committee, I believe, twice. Then it came to council whole and ready to go. That's what we're asking for. We're just asking, like, let's get it right and let's put them in. That's all. And let's buy some more electric cars.
Mayor.
Can we put a charger out here at council, please?
I just wanted to follow Mr. Acofano's statement with a thank you for laying out the blueprint of what we wanted to put in place. So I appreciate all the work because it has created an awesome blueprint.
Thank you.
And I'll speak for the committee. I don't even know if we need to vote. We will be happy to take this back to committee and bring it back next month. The intention was to give everybody all of this And we'll just do that in more detail at committee. We'll be happy to bring it back. If we want to vote, we can vote, but it's on the committee agenda. Do we need to vote to do that?
If it's going to be on the committee agenda, the motion is to defer for that purpose. So, and of course, any committee, I know Mr. Acafano had mentioned planning specifically, but any committee in addition to flood resilience could address it as well, sir.
Okay. I would just ask if any other committee wants to address it. Please understand that this came from the Flood Resilience Committee. Has to do with things that the Flood Resilience Committee was established to do, and it has no regulatory authority at all. So all in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Look forward to bringing it back to y'all next month. Item 10, council new business. First reading, ordinance to amend section 30.06 entitled Inauguration of Members, Mayor Pro Tem of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances. This comes from the committee that is in the form of a motion. This will give us the opportunity to just have an election for Mayor Pro Tem once every year.
I'll make a motion to deny.
I've made a motion from committee which does not require a second.
Right, there's a motion on the floor already for approval. Right.
This passed unanimously in committee. I don't know if I need do you need a lawyer to tell us what Mayor Pro Tem means and what the Mayor Pro Tem does? I wish you would.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mayor. The proposed amendment is to section 30.06 related to the Mayor Pro Tem, or section B, and the proposal as it stands now, our Mayor Pro Tem serves a 2-year term, and that decision is made by council following the election, and there is a vote, a nomination provision, and a vote. This proposed amendment is to make that an annual occurrence rather than every 2 years. So after every town election, which is every 2 years, and then each November in non-election years, the Mayor Pro Tem would be appointed or approved by council for a 1-year term. I should further add that this would not affect any current approval, or excuse me, any appropriate terms. So any current terms would not end until the next election period.
This will take place after the next election. Are there any duties that the Mayor Pro Tem has when there is a mayor?
Well, that is stated in our ordinance, and it provides that the duty of the Mayor Pro Tem is to act as mayor during the absence or disability of the mayor, or in the case of a vacancy in the office of the mayor.
And that's it?
Yes, sir.
In my 5 years as mayor, the Mayor Pro Tem has chaired for me 3 times, so it's not something that gets a lot, and it would take effect after the election that's coming up in 2025. Yes.
So I voted to send this to council just for discussion purposes. I think this is a solution in search of a problem. I think that because the Mayor Pro Tem is called into service in such few occasions, that a 2-year term is more appropriate than a 1-year term, because there's more likelihood that you'll have a chance of actually serving as the mayor if the mayor is ill or something or is unable to fulfill a duty. I think I think any time, historically, the Mayor Pro Tem has almost been an honorary position that we sort of give to the most senior member of council, that has been Councilman Santos. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, like I said at committee, maybe I'll throw my name into the ring for Mayor Pro Tem next time around, or anybody could. But I think that we as a council work together, need to work together well as a team to bring about the business of this community in a positive fashion. And I worry that, and I think a 2-year term is needed to give for them a long enough time to actually serve as Mayor Pro Tem, but then also having an election every year for this sort of honorary position, I think creates opportunity for divisiveness on council, for hurt feelings, and for splits. And I think, so I just don't see a purpose in moving it from a 2-year term to a 1-year term. And that's kind of where I stand on it.
Others? Mr. Chapman?
Yes, sir, Mayor. And Councilmember Whitley, I have, I guess, kind of the opposite, and it has nothing to do with our current Mayor Pro Tem, who's done a great job. I think all council members should have the opportunity for this honorary term. And the more opportunities by doing it each year gives the the 8 council members that opportunity. And again, it is a honorary term. And it's in other communities that I've worked, it's done annually, again, to give more council members the opportunity for this honorary term and to, in the case of assisting the mayor. So I think it's the right thing to do to give more opportunity to every member of council. And so by doing it every year, it does that.
There was nothing in the committee's recommendation that precludes reelecting the same person each year. So, and again, this would not take effect until after the next election because we already have a Mayor Pro Tem term in effect. Is that right?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. All right. So, all in favor of the motion from the committee, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
No.
Call the roll, please.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So can you just go through it? Tell me again what we're voting on exactly. I just got confused.
Yes, ma'am. The proposed amendment does 2 things. First, it creates a 1-year term, meaning, well, it creates an election every year. So we have a Mayor Pro Tem election every November or after every election.
Okay.
Now there's an election every 1 year followed by a 1-year term.
So, and I haven't voted, right?
No, we haven't
Okay,
voted
good.
yet.
All right.
And this does not take effect until after.
Thank you.
All right, please call the roll. The motion, yes, is to pass the ordinance.
Mr. Rambo?
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Ms. Whitley?
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Corley?
No.
Ms. Corley votes no. Ms. Hyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mr. Iacofano?
No.
Mr. Iacofano votes no. Mayor Haney?
Yes.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
All right, the motion fails on 5-4 vote. All right, council old business, B1 is final reading of an ordinance to enact section 40.032 titled Memorials and Monuments Policy. Is there a motion to approve? We need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, now your motion to amend.
Thank you. I move to amend the ordinance to accept those memorial requests currently in process in accordance with the language provided by our Corporation Council. The exempted proposed memorials are the Officer Key Memorial, the 9/11 Memorial, and the Captain Madison Memorial.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Quick question. The ordinance as written has long-term protections for all of those, which has to do with their being reestablished should they be destroyed or rebuilt or their perpetual upkeep, those type things, protect them from being moved capriciously by council without a supermajority. I just want to make sure that when we say exempt, that someone doesn't come along later and say these monuments are not protected because they were exempted. So how do we accomplish that?
The proposed language is on your screen, underlined, and you will note that the exemption is only for the application process, and all other forms, the protections that you mentioned, Mayor, would be considered.
So you referenced that when you said as proposed by the attorney, so this is exempt from the application, but they get all the protections that every other monument has.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have the amendment and we have a
Oh, I just have a question. So we're just exempting them from the application process? Was that the motion? But what about like design review and that kind of thing?
Yes, ma'am, that is part of the app. If you look how the ordinance is
okay.
prepared, that is part of it. And one of the conversations we had at PJL was they are exempt from the process, but obviously the process, the exempt process, is still governed by council. So council can still ask questions, create benchmarks, and do those sorts of things. It's just not subject to the process of the new ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Ritchie, for the work you did, especially the last council meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, all in favor, we're voting on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendment is approved. We are back to discussion on the underlying ordinance itself. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of passage of the ordinance as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passage unanimously. Thank you very much.
It's final reading, ordinance number 22065.
This is item number 2, refers back to what we just passed, and this expands the duties and powers of the Historical Commission to involve them in the accuracy and validation of all future applications.
Correct. So it's just a minor language change requiring or creating this authority and power as required by the monuments policy. And just so council's aware, we are currently reviewing, there may be some expansion of others down the road, but this is immediately necessary for that purpose.
All right, do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
It's final reading, ordinance number 22066.
Item number 3 is an ordinance to amend the budget for the town of Mount Pleasant.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Ms. Kotoff will go through some of the details. I want to thank the Finance Committee for their good work on this. Thank you very much. Ms. Kotoff, you'll walk us through.
Is a quick question.
Yes.
Is the motion to approve, does that include Finance Committee's recommendation to remove the 275?
Not yet, sir, that's on the next slide. It'll
Okay, so
show.
I would like to make a motion to amend to remove the 275 that was earmarked for the expense of the bond.
Second.
We have a motion to amend to remove the bond issuance costs from the recreation referendum bond. And we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right, the motion carries 8-1. All right.
Yes, sir, since the next item, since you've removed the funding from the debt service, what this does is there's 3 places that will be shown on the next slide that will, adding this language that will allow the proceeds.
Hold on, Marcy. I'm sorry. Mayor, we approved the amendment,
We approved the amendment.
and now we need
And
to
now we're back to discussion.
just right, just to make sure everyone understands. We're not on the bond yet. We're still in the budget.
Sorry, I did move forward. So this amendment, we do it once a year. This amendment has a couple of portions. One is the town's fund balance policy. What it does is a calculation at the end of the year with the audit that then puts money in infrastructure. So what you see is
Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to steal Ms. Kotoff's thunder, but this has been through committee several times as well as one reading of council. So with that one amendment, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
I think everybody's already on it. I think we can call it for a vote. Yeah, I guess I call for the vote.
Unless anyone, that does require a vote, but if no one wants to speak. Okay, all in favor of the budget amendment as amended? The amended budget, which is an amendment to the budget. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Final reading, ordinance number 22069.
Thank you very much.
I was all excited about the 50 million.
All right.
That's all good.
Item number 4 is to second the issuance of the bonds. We have a motion to approve, and the second we are in discussion. Do we need Mrs. Kotoff to go through any of the particulars? Any comments? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
No, hold up there. Hold up.
The amendment.
We've got to have the
You got an
amendment.
amendment to this? Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Sorry.
I move to amend the original motion to include the revisions in the bond ordinance
Got it.
that take the 275,000 and whatever the costs,
Which we just
which
did.
we just did,
As recommended by Finance Committee.
and as by recommended by Finance Committee.
And I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. By 8-1, the motion carries.
That is the motion to amend.
To amend.
All right, that is 8-1, and now the motion to approve
Now
the amended
motion
version.
to approve as amended.
Yes, sir.
All, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 9-9.
Final reading, ordinance number 22070.
There is no executive session item, so item number 11 is to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.